Opel has been on a bit of a small car buzz over the last couple of years. They've released the Adam and Adam Rocks, and they've just revised the Corsa. And now they're giving us this 5-door city car called the Karl. I'm in Zaandam, just north of Amsterdam in the Netherlands, to spend a couple of days getting to know Karl a bit better. As is the case when visiting any strange city or driving a new car, it's best to get a bit of local knowledge. So I zipped off to the first rendezvous point to meet some of Opel's best and brightest. It's amazing what you learn when you speak to the people directly responsible for designing and building a car. Lots of it tends to go right over your head, but each team member's passion for the car stays with you. The Karl won't be a record setter in Ireland, but it still gets the same care and devotion as its bigger brothers and sisters, and the results are pretty impressive. As anyone who knows me will tell you, I tend to talk a fair bit. Basically, I ran out of time on day one speaking with the engineers. With my head full of techie stuff, I fired up my sat-nav and headed back into Amsterdam. Tomorrow was another day, and I was determined to get some alone time with Karl. If you've never been to Amsterdam, it is a really pretty city and well worth walking around and kind of taking in the sights. It's really accessible too. You can just get on a bike or have a stroll. But its design is great. And the design of the car, when I saw it on paper, well, I wasn't overly enamored with it. It looked, I won't say bland, but it just didn't grab me. In the metal though, it's an entirely different story. When you see it up close, it's actually quite pretty. I like the front headlights. They look like they've been lifted from the old model Corsa. I don't mind that. They're still good looking. And then along the side, this is called the Thunder line, and it looks good. It's nice, sweeps all the way across the front door, and then they've staggered it. There's another one back here, and it just gives the car a nice kind of squatted stance. It's all in proportion. It's quite pretty. It's quite handsome. There's loads of room in it, but having said that, on the outside, it still looks kind of cute and small. The other thing that the Karl will feature next year that you can order on it is Opel's OnStar, which is their new connectivity hub thing. It's very, very current. It's all the rage now at manufacturers trying to get involved in as much tech as possible. That's where one of the key points why people buy a new car, what they look for is tech, and OnStar basically gives you access 24/7 to a dedicated phone line if you get into trouble in your Opel. So if you can't find directions somewhere, you can call somebody. Also, if you have a crash, they will call you to make sure you're okay. If they don't get any answer, then they'll take the GPS coordinates from the car and they'll send them to the emergency services and they'll come and pick you up. That's a pretty nice feature. And then you can also check things like your tyre pressure and other things on a dedicated app. That's probably more for the hardcore owners, but still it's a nice feature. And it just goes to show where all manufacturers, but particularly Opel, are heading, right towards the tech industry. They're trying to put as much of it into these kind of cars, no matter how big or small, as possible. Opel are getting really good at making small cars. They've done loads of them, and it's kind of difficult to do a really good small car because the proportions are obviously smaller. So you've got a big car, big family saloon, or a big executive saloon. When you've got a lot of space, like when you're building a house, you can build something pretty spectacular just because you've got much more room to work with. But if you were to build a small house, like a little bungalow, or even a small car like this one, you still have to make it look like a car, feel like a car, perform like a proper car, that the same normal people go out and buy. That's a much more difficult job. I like the engine, and I'm surprised to find out that this is a naturally aspirated 1 litre petrol engine. Not the turbo version that I've driven before, because it's actually quite quiet. Usually that when you get a 3-cylinder, it has that 3-cylinder rumble, and it adds a bit of character sometimes until you own the car and you live with it for a bit, and then you realise that you just don't want it to make that noise anymore. But this one doesn't make that rumble. I'm low down, I'm going to give it a bit of a squeeze, and that just sounds like a normal 4-cylinder to me. It doesn't have that horrible kind of washing machine sound to it. Sat-nav is quite good in this. It's because it's actually from my phone. It's Apple CarPlay. It goes into the IntelliLink system, which is a normal system you get in Opels. But if you plug in an iPhone or an Android device, it recognises the apps on that device and it gives you the same interface. So it's just a bit nicer to look at. It's a bit more intuitive. These kind of international launches are a bit funny. You come away for a couple of days to drive a car and you actually end up getting to know it better than sometimes your own car, because you just spend every waking moment in it because you're trying to do as much with it as possible. And it means that you can tire very easily from a car, or you can grow to really like it. And actually I quite like
in 1 kilometre,
the little
turn
Karl.
right onto Wimbledon Street.
I quite like small cars in general, and there's a load of competition that the Karl has to face from almost every brand. It's a really saturated market, way more saturated than family hatchbacks or saloons. But I think it'll probably do pretty well. It's priced nicely, drives well, looks the part. It's got a lot going for it.